Good morning. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. What an honor it is for me to stand in your presence. I speak all over the United States at Unity and Science of Mind. I can count on one hand listening to a minister give a meditation when they had the audacity to say that we are the Christ. Brandon wasn't talking about the Christ within you. He's talking about the Christ you are. How many of you have not heard me speak before? Raise your hand. Well, have a good time. No, if I was talking to you, the first thing I'd do is find out what books have you read? What trainings have you taken? What words and concepts are you familiar with as we explore this idea of being God in form? And then we could do this whole thing based on the words you're familiar with, the concepts you're used to. And since they told me I have about a half an hour, and my people are all Montana people, kind of country, there's a good chance as I get on a roll this morning, I might say something different than you're used to. I might quote scripture a little different. I might tell a story a little different. All I would ask is if we run into a place where there's a little difference, please look past it. Because I guarantee you my sole intention this morning is to remind each of us how absolutely magnificent and powerful we are right now. Now, with that said, how'd you like to wake up in the morning and before you do any conscious work in your mind, you feel this sense sort of starting low in your guts and sort of moves up through your heart and your chest until it gets up your head, and it can only be languaged like, oh goody, another day. How'd you like to go to bed at night, and as you snuggle into your covers and fluff up your own pillow, you find yourself just naturally thrilled and delighted with who you are as a human being and what you're up to in your life? How'd you like to have a body that works perfectly and is pain-free? That's the promise of unity. The promise of unity is that this philosophy is about you making your dreams come true, you having the kind of life you want. In fact, Charles Fillmore is real specific. He says that the whole purpose of unity is to assist you in doing that. The purpose of unity is for you to make your dreams come true, and through making your dreams come true, you get an experience of who you are. And there may be some of you thinking, oh good, we got a speaker who's read a few books and he's going to go up there and wave some pom-poms and lead some cheers and tell us that all things are possible if only we believe they are. Yes. But let me give you a little of my background, how I came to understand these principles. When I was 22, I hurt my back. I was working construction between college quarters. After a year of chiropractors, osteopaths, and physical therapists, I finally had a spinal fusion because the pain just got debilitating. Somehow during surgery of that spinal fusion, my spine became infected with the E. coli bacteria. E. coli is a bad bug. And this was 50 years ago. It was worse then. Orthopedic surgeon said, look, with E. coli, there's not a good antibiotic, so I need to just go cut this out of your body. Okay. So over the next year, he did 4 debridements, 4 cutting out procedures. And every time he went in, the infection had spread. After the last surgery, when he opened me up, he just put some drains in. He said, look, this is way out of my league. You need more than one primary care physician. You need a bunch of experts under one roof that can help you deal with this challenge. So he referred me to the University of Washington Medical Center in Seattle, big teaching hospital. That's where I lived. So I went in there. Within a couple of days, became a real celebrity. I had the worst case of osteomyelitis of the spine they'd ever seen. My doctor became this visiting professor from England. He was supposed to be the number 3 orthopedic surgeon in the whole world. The other professors didn't talk like that, but the interns and residents did. And he said, look, because you know, he was kind of standoffish, I thought. He said, you know, there's not a good antibiotic. I'm just going to go cut this out of your body. I know. And he says, I don't want to be blindsided when we go in for that surgery, so I'm going to do tests. So for 2 weeks, they did tests all day, every day. They poked me in places I didn't even know I had places. Finally, they got some good x-rays. He came in that afternoon with his resident and 3 or 4 interns, and when he came in that afternoon, he was different. He wasn't as standoffish. I mean, I wasn't into feelings back then. I was a construction worker, but something was going on. And he said, look, we got some great x-rays, but it's a lot more extensive than I ever imagined, this infection. So I'm going to have a meeting tomorrow with some other specialists, and after the meeting, we'll come in and tell you what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. Okay. So they left. My wife came about an hour later. The first thing she said was, what's happened? I said, what? And she said, when I came down the hall, when the nurses saw me, they turned around and walked away. What has happened? I said, I don't know. They got good x-rays. The next day, she came with our 2-year-old daughter, and we waited for the meeting. 5 o'clock came and went. Nobody showed up, which surprised me because my doctors were all professors, and usually professors go home at 5. 6 o'clock came. 7 o'clock came and went. They're still in their meeting. 8:15, the door to my private room opened up, and in walked 6 surgeons. 6 surgeons. If there's good news, there's usually one person to tell you. And if it's bad news, they tell you by committee. Guy in the lead was an orthopedic surgeon from England. Guy behind him was head of the Department of General Surgery. Guy behind him was head of the Department of Infectious Disease. Behind them, the 3 top residents, and this is what they said. The infection has spread. It's no longer just in the 2 vertebrae where you had the spinal fusion. It's up and down your spine. It's followed both of your sciatic nerves into your thighs. It's throughout your pelvic area. It's throughout your abdomen. We're pretty sure the E. coli is eating holes in the lower end of your colon, so the germs are communicating back and forth. And we've got to stop this thing now because it's become life-threatening. So tomorrow we're going to do the most extensive debridement we've ever attempted here because we've got to stop this now, Terry. We're going to take you down to the operating theater, and the general surgeons are going to start from the front. They're going to start as low as they can go down here in your pelvic area. We're going to come up around your belly button and go almost up your sternum. We're going to open all of that up. We're going to cut out all the infected tissue. We're going to separate your organs out of the way. And when we get down to the spine, the orthopedic surgeons will chisel and scrape the infection out of your spine. When we're done with that, we're going to roll you over, and the orthopedic surgeons are going to start. They're going to start as low as they can go down here between your buttocks. We're going to come up mid-back. We're going to open all of that up. We're going to cut out the infected tissue, chisel and scrape the infection out of your spine. He went into a lot more detail than I'm giving you. When we're done with that, 2 teams of surgeons are going to start at your belt line and open up both your buttocks and follow your sciatic nerves into your thighs. And when we're done with that, we're going to tip you up on the end and come in from the bottom because it's completely engulfed the lower end of your spinal column. He got about 3 minutes into that talk, and I just started shaking. My body knew what they were going to do. They were going to gut me like a dead deer. When he got done talking about the surgery, he got in a chair and sat down in a chair and pulled up next to my bed and reached out and took my hand. And quite honestly, that's when I knew I was in trouble, because this guy was not a touchy-feely doctor. And he said, Terry, I know how radical this must seem, but we've got to stop this infection now. When we're done with the debridement, the drains, and the antibiotics that we do have, we're pretty sure we can stop it from spreading anymore. The bad news is that we can guarantee you, you are going to lose the use of your left leg through nerve damage. And then he just looked at me. And I just looked at him. And he just looked at me. And finally I figured it must be my turn to say something, and I heard come out of my own mouth, that's okay. That's okay. If we've got to do this, let's just get it over with. But even as I heard those words come out of my mouth, there was part of me that thought, what has happened to me? What has happened that in just 1 year I would so willingly give up the use of my left leg? But I no sooner said that than he reached up and clamped my hand between his, and he said, Terry, we've got to do this. The bad news is, if it's as extensive as we think it is, there's a good chance you're going to lose some of the mobility of your right leg. You're probably going to lose the control of your bowels and your bladder. And there's a very good chance you're going to end up sexually impotent. That was just before my 24th birthday. The resident who'd been with me for the 2 weeks of tests, after everybody left, he just sat on my bed with my wife, and they held me. My wife and our daughter between us on one side and a doctor on the other. He didn't say anything. He just held me. And when I finally calmed down, he said, Terry, we don't know what's going to happen. We've never seen anything like this. But what we do know is you cannot expect to come out of this ordeal whole. The name of my book is The Hell I Can't. I invite you this morning to get underneath the words I use. If I say something that's a little different than you're used to, I invite you to get past it. Because when I talk to you about your power and authority on this physical plane to be able to create the reality that you want, it's not just because I read a few books. They went in the next morning, and when they opened up the pelvic area, they said the lower end of my colon was just perforated. They said there weren't any holes in it. It was like a sieve. So they pulled my bowels out, clipped them, and sewed them in my tummy. They said, you're going to go to the bathroom in a plastic bag for the rest of your life. It's called a colostomy. A month later, they did that big one. I was on the table for 13 and a half hours, took 27 units of blood. That's a lot of blood. And they stopped because they were losing me. When I came out of the coma 4 days later, they went in to finish it, and that didn't work. 3 weeks later, they did another one, and that didn't work. A month after that, they did another one, and that didn't work. 6 weeks after that, they did another one, and that didn't work. Then the next surgery, they just started mid-back, about 1.5 inches wide, and took all the tissue out of my back and buttocks so they could see my spine. And then every day they'd come in and take the bandages off and put antibiotics right on the spine. I could look in the mirror and see red pieces of meat like you'd buy in a grocery store and a yellow bumpy thing. And when I said, what is that? He said, that's your spine. Lay down. When I was in the hospital for the 14th surgery, they sent me to see a psychiatrist. And I wasn't a good patient by then. I went down there, and he created a safe space. I didn't know that's what he was doing, or I wouldn't have felt so safe. And he kept asking me how I was doing. And I learned early on, when people ask, how are you doing, you don't tell them. Because if you tell your visitors what it's like to look in a mirror and see your own spine, they won't come back and visit you. So you say, I'm fine. He kept asking, and finally I unloaded, pounded on the table, paced back and forth. Finally, after about 20, 25 minutes, I just sat down. And he looked at me and he said, Terry, It's time to take off your rose-colored glasses. And this little voice inside my head said, get up and get out of here. But I learned early, you don't make doctors mad. They will get even. So I said, what do you mean? And he said, I want to read you something. And he opened up my medical records. He had 2 stacks sitting on his desk. It's a long story, but it gets to a really good point. Just hang in there. He opened up my medical records and he pulled out a letter written from the head of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery to the insurance company, because after a few surgeries, my insurance company started writing letters saying, when are you going to fix this kid? Doctors wrote letters back, and this letter says, Dear Sirs, as you may not be aware, Mr. McBride's condition is not curable. He will have chronic osteomyelitis for the balance of his life, and because of the severity of the infection and the invasiveness of the procedures needed to keep the drains open, unless Mr. McBride is extremely fortunate, he will be left with significant, permanent disability. And he looked up at me and he said, Terry, there's a good chance you're going to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. And if you come work with me, I can assist you to face that reality, if it happens, with dignity. And I said, I don't want to learn how to live in a wheelchair with dignity. I know what you guys believe. I don't want to believe like you. And he said, who do you think you are? And we argued, and we fought. And I cursed. Because my Uncle Larry, who was my father image, because my dad had been killed in the war, Uncle Larry always told me, he said, son, if something's important to you, it's also important you use strong language. And I remember looking at him and saying, why? And he said, I don't know, but the next time you smack your thumb with a hammer, shake it and say, oh golly, and see if it helps. So as the psychiatrist is telling me I'm going to spend my life in a wheelchair, I'm telling him he can kiss anyway, it sort of got out of hand. And then he opened up another letter, pulled out another letter from the head of the Department of General Surgery, and it said the lower end of Mr. McBride's colon has been so involved with the E. coli infection, it's doubtful that it will ever heal enough for him to have his colostomy reversed. And he said, Terry, you're probably going to have that colostomy the rest of your life. I talked to your family. They tell me you don't even like to go out in public with it. And I said, I don't. It stinks. Every morning I have to give myself an enema in the side. I'm not going to have this forever. And we argued, and we fought. Finally, he kept telling me, he kept asking, who do you think you are? And he kept pushing, and he kept pushing. Finally, I looked at him and I said, look, I know what you guys believe, but I'm reading these books, and these books say there's a part of me that's not sick. What these books say is that there's a part of me that's not afraid. And what these books talk about is that if I can get in touch with that aspect of me, if I can really own that who I am is that aspect of me that's not sick, that part of me that's not afraid, these books say that from there I can learn how to create reality rather than face reality. And this loving, caring man sat back in his chair, folded his arms and said, Terry, that's your ego talking. You want to use these unity principles to create the life you want, you got to want it bad. Because if you try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and try and fail, I guarantee you somebody in this congregation will come up and say things like, perhaps God has a bigger plan for you than you just getting what you want. It was okay to me for me to want to be perfectly healthy in the beginning, but after I prayed and it didn't work, and affirmed and it didn't work, and prayed and it didn't, after 14 surgeries, 15 surgeries, 16 surgeries, those same people who in the beginning said you can do it changed their mind. Perhaps the healing you're looking for may not include the healing of your body. That's out of Bernie Siegel's book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, and that's one of the finest books on healing you can read. And even Bernie Siegel believes there may come a time when you have to realize that the healing you're looking for may not include the healing of your body. Okay, but who gets to decide? There are thousands of books written on unity. And in my opinion, there are two fundamental core beliefs that unity has that allow you and I to move into this game of human existence like Jesus brought to the party. And make no mistake, what Jesus brought to the human race is different from some of the other spiritual teachers. Jesus did not come to teach you how to work off your karmic debt. He did not come to teach you how to fulfill your spiritual contract, that thing. He came to teach you that you're divine, and the rest you get to make up through your consciousness. The first foundation for unity, from my position, I know I'm getting a little pushy, but I get excited when I'm up here. The foundation for unity, from my position, is that you are already holy. This is what Brandon was talking about. That the truth that Jesus brought to the human race was, you're not your stuff, you're not your history, you're not your past. You are a unique expression of the divine. It was Jesus. I mean, it's in the Old Testament. It was said, you're the crowning achievement of the living God. But they didn't talk about that much in the Old Testament. They just threw that out there and then went on to talk about God's plan for you. And if you don't do this, if you don't follow directions, a whale will eat you and then spit you back up. But what Jesus brought to the party was different. What Jesus said was, you're already holy. That's when he said, know ye not your sons and daughters of the Most High? He didn't say when you forgive enough, then you're the sons and daughters of the Most High. He didn't say when you let go enough, you're the sons and daughters of the Most High. He didn't say when you're willing. He didn't do any of the enough stuff. You and I have been programmed that we got to do something enough before you're holy. And it doesn't work that way. You cannot take something that's broken and fix it and have it be perfect. You have to start from you're already perfect. You have to start from you're already a unique expression of the divine. That's the foundation for metaphysics. Joel Goldsmith says that you're God expressing. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, says you are the personification of that which is God, expressing uniquely as man. The personification of that which is God, expressing uniquely as woman. Jesus said, you're sons and daughters of the Most High. Charles Fillmore is real specific. On page 71 of the Unity Treasure Chest, he says it like this. He's talking in this section of this, he's talking about what unity offers us, the freedom in human existence. And he says, all right, so if you're going to use these principles that Jesus brought to the party, where do you start? And on page 71, he says this. The way to do this is the way Jesus did it. He acknowledged himself to be the Son of God. The attainment of Christ consciousness calls for nothing less on our part than a definite recognition of ourselves as the daughters and sons of God, right here, right now, regardless of appearances to the contrary. You're not your stuff. You're not your past. You have the right, the divine right, to move into your life being a unique expression of God itself. This is what Brandon was talking about when he said, here, in this church, where we are gathered in the name of that Christ, the name, as many times, of our brother Jesus. He says, here together, where two or more are gathered, we can begin to experience the consciousness that says, I am free, I am holy, I am the divine essence. Where else are you going to talk about that? Where else can you and I go and talk about what does it mean to be the Christ? Well, how do we do this? What do we do? That's what you have here together. That's what the classes are about. That's what this foundation of unity, the principles of unity that Brandon's talking about, that we believe there's a foundation that you get, and that is that you're holy, and then from that holiness you move in, and here we explore it together. Where else are you going to do it? You think the next time you have a big family get-together, at Christmas, or, those kinds of things where people from your extended family are there around the table, you think if somebody says, at one of the point in sharing, they're going to say, so what'd you get? What have you got lately? And you'll be able to say, you know what I got last Sunday at church? I'm the living Christ. You think your relatives would believe it? That's what you have here. That's what you've created. That's what Charles and Myrtle's dream was, to create a place where individuals could come together and explore the idea, the truth that sets you free. And that truth is that you're already holy. I didn't know what that was in the beginning. When I was in my 20s, I didn't get raised in unity. I didn't have the ability to say, I'm God expressing uniquely at me. But at least I could look at the psychiatrist and say, I'm not my stuff. I'm not my past. See, the truth that sets you free is that you're already holy. You're already a magnificent expression of God. And the second truth, that the foundation for unity, is that you're not alone. That right after the idea of I'm free, the next piece is that you are powerful beyond measure. Unity is not about accepting conditions. Unity is about changing conditions. Unity is not about going with the flow. Unless the flow is going the way you want, and if it's not going the way you want, you have the right and the authority to change the course of the river. Of course, if you say that to people, they'll go, who do you think you are? We've just covered that. Where do you set your limits? Who do you study with? Notice what I said. I can count on one hand the time I've seen a unity minister stand up in the front of their congregation and say, you are the Christ. They weren't talking about the Christ within you as the hope and the glory. They're talking about the Christ you are, that's the hope and the glory. You've created a wonderful place here. The second piece that Jesus brought to the party was that you are powerful beyond measure. Charles Fillmore languages it this way on page 98. So in this group of articles he's writing, he says the place to start is to know that you're holy. Know that you are a divine expression of God. And he said then the next piece is, on page 98, he says, Jesus did not claim to have exclusive use of the supernatural power he used. In other words, what this church teaches is you are holy and the infinite power of God awaits your command. That's what he said. As ye believe, so shall it be done unto you. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believing you shall have it, you shall have it. All things are possible if only you believe. Why could he say that with such force? Because he knew the infinite power of the universe was backing him up. See, what Jesus brought to the human race was you do not have to change for the infinite power of God to back up your belief system. It already does. You don't need to forgive enough, let go enough, none of that. You do not have to change for the infinite power of God to back up your belief system. It already does. If you believe in want and sickness and lack, then the infinite power of the universe will move in your life and create want and sickness and lack. But what unity teaches you is you can change your beliefs to joy, abundance, and health. And then the entire power of the universe will back you up to create joy, abundance, peace, and health. See, the truth that sets you free is that you're God expressing uniquely as you. And what does it set you free from? The lie of human limitations. Mark my word, I know exactly what I'm saying. It's not sort of a, what this philosophy does is free you from the lie of human limitations. All things are possible if you believe they are. Of course, if you say that to some people who want to come and assist you to accept the things you cannot change, if you say all things are possible, if I believe, they'll look at you and go, who do you think you are? And we've already covered that. But now we're into the power and authority part. That what Jesus brought to the human race was power and authority. You know that. You've heard this kind of thing before. What Charles brings to this idea of our spiritual truth and this possibility of being powerful beyond measure is this, on page 93 of the Unity Treasure Chest. Study and research are well in their own time and place, but no amount of either will get you out of a concrete difficulty. Nothing but practical work in your own consciousness will do that. This philosophy is more than sitting around with your palms up so you can be receptive. It's more than having your feet on the floor so the energy from the Mother Earth can flow up through you, or breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, and getting all your chakras spinning in the right direction, or raising your Kundalini energy. What this philosophy is about is understanding your God in form and then taking charge of your creative mind. Because when you take charge of your creative mind, you can do works that are even greater than Jesus did. Because Charles says the proof of the pudding is not in the theory, it's in your actual practice. What this center offers you is to come together and explore this idea of being divine. And more than that, then get together and study practical spiritual principles that you can use for what's right in front of you. I did not start using these principles so I'd get well. I started using these principles so I wouldn't cry myself to sleep every night. I didn't start on this journey of discovery so I could be a great teacher. And I am a great teacher. I wrote it down. I started using these principles so I'd be able to go to the bathroom the way I used to go to the bathroom. What this center offers you is the opportunity to come together with your spiritual family and study spiritual truths that allow you to make your dreams come true. And when you make your dreams come true, you will get an experience of self that's even bigger than your dreams. This is the year in your center, the year of I am. I encourage you, every time you say, I am, pay attention to what you're putting behind it. Because this center offers you the opportunity to not only wake up in joy, to go to bed in joy, to have a body that's pain-free. It offers you the opportunity to go into the bathroom in the morning, and when you turn on the light and look in the mirror, your automatic response is, that's the face of God looking back at me. Get involved in the center. Take the classes. Go out to Unity Village. Remember, all things are possible. Believe in your dreams. No matter how many times they've been dashed, so no matter how many times other people tell you something else, I stand before you at 70 years old with no pain. I had that infection for 11 years. I had 27 surgeries on my body. I don't have a colostomy anymore. I don't have any pain because I healed my body. Sometimes people say, don't you mean God healed your body? I look them right in the eye and say, no, I don't. My God didn't make me sick. My God didn't make me well. My God simply said, I adore you just the way that you are. And you pick the game, and I will play with you there. What game have you picked? Believe in your dreams. God bless.